evening, race fans, and welcome back to another round of the Legacy Sports Car Series, sponsored by Ledford Construction. Today, we find ourselves at the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway for round 5 of the winter season. As always, my name is James East with Team Goon Squad Broadcasting, bringing the action 60 frames per second, 1080p. Always a lot of fun up here in the booth watching these guys go fast in a affordable multi-class racing league. A lot of fun to have these guys out here, as right now we're heading out for open qualifying. Daniel Beauchamp in the 451 machine is coming out. He was the pole setter last week at Watkins Glen before facing some sort of mechanical in that Honda LMP2, and he had to retire after only one lap, so hopefully he has a bit of better fortune here today. Looking to be a pretty healthy grid, as let's see, we've got Jason Connolly, Andrew Neri, Johnny Eckert, Zach Rogers, Matthew Hansford-Taylor, Finley Fitzsimmons, Daniel Beauchamp, Gareth Mcallister, Connor Brown, all out on track here today. Looking forward to being another great event. And again, if you're looking to join, check them out. Legacy Sports Car Series, free to enter. A whole lot of fun and inexpensive cars. Some of the cars are as cheap as $3. And they do their best to overlap when possible with the other series these guys run with. That way nobody's having to load up on multiple cars, and makes things a little bit more affordable for all of our drivers. As a fairly healthy grid, about 9 drivers making their way out here today. Not a whole lot of Daytona Pro drivers. Looks like it's just going to be Johnny Eckert in the number 90 machine, our lone Daytona Pro type driver here today. Looks to be about 2 GT1 drivers, 3 GT3 drivers. So not a bad day, all things considered. Always a lot of fun watching the action. None of these races are ever set in stone on who's going to finish where. Historically, we've seen battles of attrition as you watch Beauchamp try and make his way around Eckert in the number 90 machine here during qualifying. But even last week, we had 2 different races that weren't decided until the closing 5, maybe 10 minutes, where we saw Jacob Money blow up the engine of his GT1. That allowed Jason Connolly to pick up a win. And then we also had Mcallister. He had a mechanical right at the end as well, and that allowed Jimothy West to pick up his first win in the GT3 class. So always interesting to see how that breaks down for these drivers and how it may apply to everyone out on course, as everyone is setting their fastest time so far. Right now, Beauchamp, the fastest LMP2, Connolly, the fastest GT1, Eckert in the Daytona Pro Types is fastest in class, and Mcallister is fastest in the GT3s. So again, if you're looking to join an inexpensive, free-to-join road racing league, work on your multi-class racing skill set in a closed course environment amongst great drivers, check them out. Legacy Sports Car Series, the Honda LMP2, the Ferrari GT3, all about $3 to buy on the iRacing service if you don't already have it. The LMP2, the Daytona Prototype, and the BMW Z4 GT3, another great option, all $3. And again, such common tracks. Doesn't matter if you're an oval racer or a road racer, you will get your money's worth out of all the content that you purchase just for this league. As Beauchamp once again cutting his way by, I believe that's going to be Zach Rogers, the number 4 machine. It is. Rogers was the Mountain Man Motorsports. I believe this may be Zach's first appearance here at the Legacy Sports Car Series. He is currently the 2nd fastest GT1 driver out on course. About 3/10 behind pole setter for class, Jason Connolly. Unfortunately, we did get a report that Money will not be at this event here today, which is an absolute shame, as last week the GT1 drivers was within 1 second of each other for 40 of the 45 minutes of the feature event. So some great racing to be had all across the track. And multi-class racing, always exciting out on track. Nine drivers making their way out. Now tonight's format is a 15-minute open qualifying followed by a 45-minute feature event. Daniel Beauchamp is appearing to be leaving pit lane after making some changes on his car. He's about 2100ths faster than Hansford Taylor, the second fastest LMP2 driver out here today, sporting the number 97 machine. As we check in on Hansford Taylor, ooh, has a bit of a bobble there. May have gotten off track that will invalidate his current lap time. So what you'll see here is, ooh, carnage. I think that's Fitzsimmons. Number 6 goes for a wild ride. So what you're going to see here is Taylor and both Fitzsimmons will take a quick tow back to pit road so they can go back out with fresh machines, maybe make any adjustments on the car that they may need, trying to do whatever it takes to catch up to Beauchamp, who's sitting on top of pole. As we check in on Jumpin' Johnny Eckert, the number 90 machine. Looks like he's running a new paint scheme as well this month. Eckert was one of the fastest drivers we had in Season 1 of the Legacy Sports Car Series. Not running a full schedule this season, but still coming out and having fun with his friends when the time allows. And that's kind of the general consensus here is guys run all across the iRacing network with each other and different disciplines. You link up with a bunch of friends, and a lot of the guys are all in events that I have the pleasure of broadcasting, and just surrounding yourself with like-minded folks, having a bunch of fun. As Eckert currently 4th fastest overall, our lone Daytona prototype driver out here today at Indy. As he will go diving into turn 1. As always, thank you to our fans, friends, and family that tune in each and every week, supporting their broadcast as well as their favorite drivers. For those that leave a comment cheering on your favorite driver, I promise you the guys go back and watch this and they'll see the fans at home giving them a cheer. And thank you as well for those that have liked the video, subscribed to the channel. It helps us out, it helps promote your favorite drivers. As we watch Eckert try and cut through traffic, catching up to a GT1 driver. I believe that's going to be Rogers, the number 4 machine, just ahead of Eckert here. Rogers' fastest lap time was a 1:23.78. So about 6/10 slower than the Daytona prototype driver, Johnny Eckert. And that's one of my favorite kind of battles we see here is between the Daytona prototypes and the GT1s. These cars are so close on speed, depending on the track. Makes for some very interesting multi-class racing. Beauchamp goes back out on track. He clicks off a 1:18.89, improving on his fastest time of the day. And Eckert will bring it down pit road to make some changes on that number 90 machine. We'll check on Finley Fitzsimmons in the number 6. He's currently 3rd overall in qualifying, as well as 3rd in class in the number 6. He finds himself about a 1/4 of a second off of pole of Daniel Beauchamp and only about 0.05 of a second back from Hansford Taylor, the 2nd place driver in these LMP2s. Now these high downforce cars are a lot of fun to watch navigate the road courses. A lot of fun to drive as well. Very high horsepower machines. The faster you huck it into the corners, the more grip it has on those tires. But if and when they slow down a little bit much, it takes the air off these machines, and when they crash, oh my, do they crash. Zach Rogers goes back out on track to try and improve on his qualifying position. Eckert and Connolly are both in pit lane. Mcallister is still sitting on top of pole for our GT3 drivers here today. As now Fitzsimmons will have company. I believe that's going to be Matthew Hansford Taylor. as they are carefully getting through the tighter sections here at Indianapolis. Now these are the corners you have to keep an eye out, as they are not putting a whole lot of speed through those corners, and that takes the air off the car. And that's when things can get very, very slippery for our LMP2 drivers here today. About 4.5 minutes left in qualifying for Hansford, Taylor, and Fitzsimmons to try and improve their times and see if they can dethrone Beauchamp late into qualifying. Beauchamp's fastest lap time is a 1:18.89. They get about 2/10 faster than Hansford Taylor, so I'm not sure if Hansford Taylor had a bit of a bobble there catch up to Fitzsimmons, if that will invalidate his lap time, or maybe he's playing the strategy game here and trying to use the draft of Fitzsimmons to improve that time just ever so slightly as they cross the line. They're getting a little bit closer, but not close enough, as Fitzsimmons gets out of the draft of Hansford Taylor, dives to the inside line. Now Hansford Taylor will take over the on-track position here in qualifying. Time is rapidly slowing for these drivers. Are we going to see Hansford Taylor or Fitzsimmons improve on their times and get down into that 1:18 mark out on track? That was an absolute flyer by Beauchamp. Fitzsimmons goes off track, so he will have this lap invalidated and maybe have enough time maybe for one more attempt. But with a 1:20 lap times, that is not a lot of time left to try and improve on your qualifying position. And while we say that, Beauchamp keeps getting faster, clicks off another 1:18.891, so he found a few more hundredths of a second out of that 4:51 LMP2. Fitzsimmons goes back out on track to try and squeeze out some more time. I don't know if he's going to have enough time to get his out lap and a flying lap done here at Indy. As we were watching Hansford Taylor to see if he can improve on his 1:19.1. He's about still 2/10 off of Beauchamp. But good to see all the LMP2 drivers making their way out here today, putting on a great show. And Taylor may have had a bobble and he saw something go wrong. He's going to pull over, maybe go back to pit lane here. So he will not have enough time to catch up to Daniel Beauchamp. Zach Rogers still out on track, charging hard. He's about 3/10 off of pole setter in the GT1's Jason Connolly. And I've got to say, I love listening to those Corvettes make their way around the circuit. And yes, we did get confirmation. This is Rogers' very first time out here at Legacy Sports Car Series, sporting the GT1 Corvette C6 and the number 4 machine. We've had the pleasure of calling his events in the past in another Oval Series we broadcast. So good to see Rogers coming out here today, having a bunch of fun for the first time at this road circuit. From my understanding, he is an electrician from the driver profile that he submitted. He's also a Twitch streamer and has his own YouTube channel at Sweaty Zed is the branding he has for both of those channels if you want to go check out what Zach Rogers does in his spare time. The qualifying about to come to a close. Let's see what Rogers can do this time by if he improves on a 1:23.78. And he does not quite beat his own time, but he's still finding pace here, so I think that's a very important thing to keep an eye on. So Rogers, I believe, will be the last driver out on track here. And then, let's check it out. I think Jason Connolly, Finley Fitzsimmons still out on track. Connolly practicing a pit entry, as well as Fitzsimmons. So we will get ready to take it to today's feature event. It's going to be 45 minutes, but it's Beauchamp on top with LMP2s, Eckert and Daytona Prototype, Connolly and GT1, and GT3 will be owned by Mcallister. That is your pole setters per class. Looking forward to another great race here today. Let's see, Barney, our flagman, putting in work to an empty track, but he's going to try and get the exercise, keep that cardio up. As we're going to wait for our drivers, they're getting a final briefing from race control, telling them what they expect here today before we get them gridded up for this 45-minute feature event. Generally, it is a one planned stop race for these drivers. Usually they'll come in around the halfway mark, take tires, will normally take fuel and double stint tires is normally the name of the game. But one thing that's always happened here at the Legacy Sports Car Series is that we get a little bit of unplanned excitement. As last week was no exception. I mean, that was action-packed from start to finish. Some of the best racing I think we've had the pleasure of broadcasting here at the Legacy Sports Car Series. Last week was Watkins Glen, and it was all sorts of out of control through all the classes. You really didn't know who was going to bring it home as things went on. As we get ready to send them out here for for the feature event, it's Daniel Beauchamp starting on top of pole here today in the 451. Matthew Hansford-Taylor starting second in the LMP2s and overall. Finley Fitzsimmons starting third overall and third in class in the Honda LMP2s. Jumping Johnny Eckert starting on pole for the Daytona Prototypes. He'll be starting fourth overall. Jason Connolly, our fastest GT1 driver in qualifying, starting fifth. Zach Rogers in the GT1 starting sixth. Gareth Mcallister setting the pole pace for the GT3 drivers. He'll be starting seventh overall. Andrew Neri in the 654 starting eighth. And then Connor Brown in the number 45 machine will be starting ninth after a great qualifying by his effort as well. But let's get ready to send them out racing here today. Going to be exciting what happens, as these guys always provide a whole lot of entertainment. So we'll get them one sighting lap behind our iRacing safety car, the Porsche on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Drivers getting their last bit of briefing. We're still waiting on Eckert in the number 90 machine, the Daytona Prototype pilot, to make his way out onto the surface before we can get this show going. Again, it's a 45-minute feature event here today. As Eckert makes his way onto the grid, it's time to go racing here at the Legacy Sports Car Series. Giving some panic revs to our fans at home. As we get this thing rolling, 45 minutes here at Indianapolis. Who's it going to be? 9 drivers are making their way out on track. Who's going to be able to bring it home? And maybe look to see if some first-timers can try and get their first win of the season. Matthew Hansford-Taylor looking for his first win. I believe Zach Rogers, Andrew Neri, Connor Brown all looking for a first win as well. This will be the last opportunity for our drivers to check out the surface, see if anything's changed before they get going for the 45-minute feature. It'll be Daniel Beauchamp, Finley Fitzsimmons on the front row. Excuse me, it'll be Daniel Beauchamp and Matthew Hansford-Taylor in the front row. Fitzsimmons and Connolly, Fitzsimmons Eckert your second row, Connolly and Rogers your third row. And then Mcallister and I believe it'll be Brown or Neri on the final fourth row. We're expecting to see anywhere between 30 to 50 laps out of our drivers here today before they hit the 45-minute time window. At least that'll be for the LMP2 drivers after the math we're doing here in the broadcast booth. As the pace car comes in, here we go. 45 minutes here at Indianapolis. Who's it gonna be? Matthew Hansford-Taylor will lead the pack into turn one. Right behind him is Fitzsimmons. On the right-hand side is pole setter Beauchamp, who's gonna send it in turn one. Able to make the pass cleanly. Here comes Fitzsimmons as well, trying to make a spot early on over Hansford-Taylor behind our three LMP2 drivers. Things are shaking up with the GT1s as well. As Fitzsimmons and Hansford-Taylor go side by side, Fitzsimmons will take over the spot. As we check in on Jumpin' Johnny Eckert, he is leading the GT1 drivers. Jason Connolly and Zach Rogers close in tow here. And then behind that, your second pack of drivers, the GT3, Gareth Mcallister, Andrew Neri, Connor Brown. All right, single file as you see Brown push it way wide. Back to our Honda LMP2s, it's still Beauchamp out front, Fitzsimmons second, and Matthew Hansford-Taylor bringing up third. The opening laps, all sorts of exciting here today. Beauchamp opening laps of 121.76, trying to get going as quick as he can. That's Fitzsimmons and Hansford-Taylor staying relatively close in tow here. Right now, you're still watching Fitzsimmons and Hansford-Taylor. They're within a half second of each other opening on. It looks like Connolly and Rogers were able to get around Eckert and the Daytona prototype driver. Connolly still holding on to the lead in class. We'll pull up the ticker in the middle of your screen showing you where your favorite driver in each class is as far as the race leaders go. As now the pace is getting going. Matthew Hansford actually has the fastest lap of the race so far with a 19.45. Looks like he was trying to make a jab over on Fitzsimmons, but not quite able to make it happen. Fitzsimmons still running about a half second behind Beauchamp, able to pick up that draft on the long banking NASCAR section of the racetrack, or oval track, I should say, as this is Indy after all. Oh no, Hansford-Taylor has a big bobble, locks up the rears and goes sliding. Hopefully not flat spotting the tires too bad, but he's gonna have to work hard to catch back up to Fitzsimmons, who now has about a 2-second gap over the number 97 machine of Hansford-Taylor. It does not appear that the number 97 took too much damage here. But that's got to be frustrating early on into the event to have that incident. So now he's just got to focus on keeping his head down, staying clean, and capitalizing on his opponent's mistakes, because this is a game of consistency here at the Legacy Sports Car Series. It is about who makes the least amount of mistakes, as it looks like Eckert has once again got around Zach Rogers. Maybe Rogers had a bobble and we did not see it on the broadcast software. Beauchamp keeps getting faster and faster, clicks off the fastest lap of the race with a 19.36. He is absolutely potent when he has that clean air in front of him to put down some record-setting laps. Let's check back in our GT3 drivers. It's Gareth Mcallister in the number 25 machine, and his world-famous painted Ferrari, currently first in class. Right now, Mcallister has about a 2-second gap over Andrew Neri, who's second in class, and he's about 6.5 seconds ahead of Connor Brown, who rounds out the podium here for our GT3 drivers. Because again, this is a game of consistency. Andrew Neri working hard to catch up to Mcallister. The American has Mcallister in his sights, but just has to be very mindful not to make any mistakes here. Just keep chugging along. As Beauchamp out front, still getting faster with a 119.16. He will be extending that lead ever so slightly, working his way to about 2 seconds ahead of Fitzsimmons. Early on into the race, Eckert clicks off the fastest lap of his race with a 123.34. As we check back in on your race leader, Daniel Beauchamp, he's about 1.8 seconds ahead of second place Fitzsimmons, and only about 3.5 ahead of Matthew Hansford-Taylor. So our LMP2 drivers here today staying very consistent throughout the run, minus the occasional bobble we see here and there. Beauchamp with a, let's see what he does, a 119.29 that last time by, compared to Simmons, who clicks off, I believe it's going to be a 119.5, so that's Fitzsimmons' fastest lap of the race. And Fitzsimmons, now he has Hansford-Taylor back kind of in striking distance, about 1.5 seconds off the rear bumper of that number 6 LMP2, piloted by Fitzsimmons. So things are shaking up and getting a little bit quicker. Another battle out on track is Eckert appears to be finding some pace. He's back within 1 second of the GT1 class leader, Jason Connolly. Eckert has the draft of Connolly. That may help pull along his Daytona prototype faster up towards the front of the field. As the draft is so important here, it allows you to get just maybe a tenth faster than what you've been able to do in the past. As the field starts to spread out, I believe Hansford Taylor is still within striking distance. He's gained about 3 or 4 tenths in the last few laps, catching up to about 1.1 tenths behind Finley Fitzsimmons here. So we may be soon approaching a heated battle for a second overall and second in class in the LMP2s. Daniel Beauchamp still out front. He's extended his lead to about 1.8 seconds. Meanwhile, things may get heated up here for the LMP2s, as Hansford Taylor still holding off right at 1.2 seconds behind Fitzsimmons, who's second overall, second in class in the Honda LMP2s. One of the best classes to watch out here. These guys are so extremely talented, able to drive these high downforce machines around at just a disgusting rate of speed. They've got about 35 minutes left in today's feature event. As it looks like Fitzsimmons is still barely extending that lap. His last time by, he was about 4 tenths faster than the number 97 of Hansford Taylor, extending that gap back to about 1.7 seconds. Meanwhile, the overall race leader and Honda LMP2 leader, Beauchamp, is holding about a 1.9 seconds. Oh no, Hansford Taylor has problems, sends it off track. Almost holds on to it before being forced to lock up the brakes. So Hansford Taylor with a big problem here. Will get it relaunched safely in the right direction, but he will find himself about 15 seconds behind Fitzsimmons. Getting back out on track, having a rough go of it early on here today. But not is all over for Hansford Taylor, as we have seen a whole lot of problems strike our drivers late into a race. As let's take a quick second and pan back to the GT3 class. As we pan back over to Mcallister, he's your current race leader for the GT3 class, currently running 7th overall in the number 25 Ferrari. Mcallister holding about a 8-second advantage over Andrew Neri, piloting the 654 BMW machine here today. Mcallister being very, very consistent. His fastest lap is the fastest in class with a 1:27.85, and he's being very smooth, clicking off 1 minute 28 all the way around the circuit here today, not having any big problems or worries. And something else interesting to keep an eye on, jumping Johnny Eckert. He is catching back up to Connolly. Now, once they get on the long bank straightaways here at Indy, that allows Connolly to pull another few tenths of a second. But right as they get back into the infield, Eckert gets right back up to Connolly's GT1 machine. Again, 2 different class drivers here today. But everybody likes racing, and Eckert able to use that downforce on the Daytona prototype to stay glued to the GT1 driver of Jason Connolly, wicking through the infield. Now let's see where Connolly starts to stretch his legs once more, but this may be mutually beneficial for both drivers, especially on the longer portions of the track. Able to use that draft and work up some faster lap times than they have been in the past. As interesting enough, it appears Eckert hops out of the draft there. Not sure if he's looking for an overtake or maybe just looking for a wider view to see where his brake marks are going to be coming up. As Connolly and Eckert riding around two different class drivers, both leading their class. Their next closest competition will be Zach Rogers, 3.5 seconds back in his number 4 Corvette GT1. As this is where you're going to see Connolly stretch his legs once more. And oh, we've got an incident out on track. Finley Fitzsimmons, the second place Honda LMP2 driver, has all sorts of problems, unable to keep the car pointing in the right direction. This will allow Beauchamp to extend his lead to about 10 seconds. And then Hansford Taylor has it off track as well. So carnage here at Indy as both LMP2 drivers having all sorts of issues. Now Fitzsimmons, who was once 1.5 seconds off the leader, Daniel Beauchamp, will find himself at a 10-second disadvantage, not even to the halfway mark of today's event. We're about 1/3 of the way through tonight's event. As you're going to see Fitzsimmons, I believe, catch back up to, I think that's going to be Connor Brown. Or no, that may be Mcallister, your race leader for the GT3s. Yes, it is. The race leader of the GT3s, Gareth Mcallister, will go down a lap here at Indy, allowing Fitzsimmons to take over second place overall. And now we're down to 6 drivers on the lead lap. But this is what we were talking about early on in the broadcast. It just takes a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of inconsistency, and you can find yourself quickly going the wrong way as Hansford Taylor will bring it down pit road. Jumping Johnny Eckert in the Daytona Prototype has taken over the position from Jason Connolly, moving up to 4th overall here today. Now that is not a battle for the same class between the GT1 and the Daytona Prototype drivers, but these guys are out here trying to race their absolute best. And it doesn't rightly matter where you're at, you're going to try and make something happen. So as Hansford Taylor makes his way into pit road, that's going to allow Eckert, Connolly, Rogers all to gain a position. And now all of a sudden, Eckert is in a podium for the overall event here today at Indy. Now running 3rd overall in that Daytona Prototype. Now that Connolly sees that he has a spot at the top 3 overall, you may see the number 66 machine get back on the throttle and start hammering down. As these guys want to win both their class, but be able to pick up an overall podium would be absolutely fantastic, especially for these slower class drivers. As Fitzsimmons, unfortunately involved in another incident, having a very rough time here in Indy, goes careening off track in the infield, that low downforce section we were touched about earlier. As you see the back end starts skating away. Not sure if he's got a large amount of grass on those slick tires or what may be the issue as Mcallister checks up to avoid getting into Fitzsimmons. The GT3 driver trying to play carefully here, not wanting to throw away his large lead that he has over Andrew Neri. But this is where things can compound for our LMP2 drivers. You make a mistake, you get some grass in the tires, it gets compounded by your frustrations. And these cars reward hard driving, so if you start backing off the pace and kind of taking it easy, that actually makes the car a bit harder to drive, less downforce. As you see Fitzsimmons tricycling through the corners here. As that front right looks like it was coming off the ground ever so slightly. So hopefully Fitzsimmons doesn't have any suspension damage. It looks like Hansford Taylor's coming back down pit road, not quite happy with how his number 97 LMP2 was handling here. So hopefully he can get back out there and salvage a race as he's still 6th overall. 3rd in class. Daniel Beauchamp running out front uncontested here today. As yes, Hansford Taylor does go back out on track. I'm almost curious if Hansford Taylor maybe had a stop and go penalty here today. So now Fitzsimmons will be about 24 seconds back from your race leader Daniel Beauchamp. Johnny Eckert, he's about 33 seconds behind Fitzsimmons, but the Daytona Prototype driver of Johnny Eckert having a great night here today, not having any big problems in the number 90 machine, keeping his nose clean as you see Jason Connolly watching from the background going into turn 1. So these are 2 different class leaders. Johnny Eckert is currently leading Daytona Prototypes in a big moment, able to hold on to it as the back end steps out. And then Jason Connolly on the background here, about to be in your screen, in the all-green Aston Martin. He's in the number 66, leading the GT1 class. But we're not quite halfway through, and this is where you're going to see driver attrition really come into play. As the tire wear starts to come in, the cars get a little bit lighter and the drivers get a little bit more comfortable, and then towards the end of the run, they'll get a little bit tired, and that's when you'll see mistakes start to be made that can really ruin things for these guys. As we're watching Eckert, who's extending that gap over Connolly. Now Connolly will be a bit faster here on the high bank straightaways, gaining almost 3 or 4 tenths, back down to 1 second flat going into turn 1. As they're going to have more traffic, I believe Eckert's about to catch up to Connor Brown, driving the number 45 Ford GT3. Yes, that is Brown, doing a great job running third in class here today, as he's going to hold wide to allow both Eckert and Connolly to get through nice and clean as soon as he can. So well done. Brown having the forethought and know-how, not trying to ruin his podium contention here, involving himself in a battle that does not matter for position. But Jason Connolly, Johnny Eckert, although they are class leaders for their respective GT1s and Daytona prototypes, both of these drivers are looking to get up on the podium for that overall finish here today. As in the infield, Connolly's about 1.8 seconds back from Eckert. But watch as they get back out onto NASCAR or IndyCar turns 2 and 1. Back down the straightaway, you're going to see Connolly stretch the legs of that high-strung Aston Martin and whittle away at that gap. Again, it was 1.8 seconds coming out into this section of the tarmac. Let's see what it is going into turn 1. As that GT1 car has some horsepower, but the Daytona prototype driver, Johnny Eckert, he has the downforce. As look at that, Connolly gets within 0.6 of a second going into turn 1. But Eckert able to huck it in just so incredibly deep in that number 90 Daytona prototype, helping to keep Connolly at bay here. Fitzsimmons looks to be in another incident. The Honda LMP2 driver running second overall has another bobble. Now he's still about 40 seconds ahead of third place overall, Johnny Eckert. But at this point, he's got to be going into survival mode. He knows we're about halfway through today's main event. I'm still looking good for a second in class and second overall. Now you just got to be consistent and bringing it home here at the end. Oh no, and then Hansford Taylor has a moment. I believe that's going into turn 1. Yeah, he pushed 2 incredibly deep. That will have Fitzsimmons putting him a lap down. Maybe a slight amount of aero damage on that number 97 machine. We'll keep an eye on his lap time to see how that will affect him over the run. What a night here at Indianapolis. Absolute carnage out on track. We've lost a lot of great drivers, but we still have everybody pointing in the right direction and rolling forward. Beauchamp clicking off 119s like it's his full-time job. A 119.54 his last time by. He's about 4/10 off of his fastest lap of the race, but he's in no major pressure here to try and hot lap, knowing he's got a 33-second gap, barring any incidents or, oh, who is that? That's Zach Rogers takes the spin in the number 4 machine. And just as I was saying that, Beauchamp's responsibility here is just to get through this race clean, barring any on-track incidents or any problems on pit road. He's looking very comfortable to pick up another win here in the Legacy Sports Car Series. As Hansford Taylor has another big moment. I'm almost wondering if he's getting close to the disqualification limit here. He's having a very rough night. And just unfortunately sends it careening around once more. And Hansford Taylor takes it back to pit road. I believe he may be retired for the evening with too much damage on that number 97 machine. But we got another battle going on. Johnny Eckert has gotten passed by Jason Connolly, the class leader for the GT1s. Is Connolly to Eckert leading the ton of prototypes, both getting around Andrew Neri, second place in the GT3 BMW. But now it's Connolly looking for a third place overall as we pass the halfway mark here today. Again, in the top center of your screen, that is your current leaders per class. Beauchamp in the LMP2, Eckert in the ton of prototypes, Connolly in the GT1s, Mcallister in the GT3s, as Eckert is all over the rear bumper of your GT1 class leader, Jason Connolly. Just absolute great racing all the way around here today. Guys out here having the utmost fun and respect for each other, racing hard, even if they're in different classes, just enjoying the side-by-side great racing action you can find here at the Legacy Sports Car Series. As it looks like Eckert will initiate his pit cycle right on lap 19. Connolly staying out, so that'll be our first green flag stop, being served by Jumpin' Johnny Eckert in the number 90 machine. As Connolly's about to have pressure from the overall race leader, Daniel Beauchamp, going into turn 1. As you go on board with Beauchamp in the 451 machine, he's going to try and look for a nice clean way through lap traffic. Connolly will yield the inside line. No! Beauchamp has to slow way down here. So Connolly will see both the blue flags as well as the headlights being flashed by Beauchamp. So now it is two drivers on the lead lap. It's Daniel Beauchamp, your overall race leader, Finley Fitzsimmons, the second place runner-up overall as well as in class in the Honda LMP2s. As they have lapped all the way up here through the field. Now again, this is where things get mighty exciting and dare I say a little bit scary for Beauchamp, as he has to worry about both his driving and any mistakes he can make as well as other drivers, but he will quickly get around Mcallister, no problem there. As these guys are doing a great job keeping it clean here today. Not any big worries so far. We've seen a few single car incidents, but nothing race ending for the majority of the field here today. Zach Rogers piloting the number 4 GT1. He's coming down pit road on lap 19. That'll be our second green flag stop of the day. Finley Fitzsimmons also coming down pit road on lap 21 for his Honda LMP2. So now how long is Beauchamp going to stretch it out here for? Eckert was in his pit stall for the first stop of the day for about 16.75 seconds. Rogers, who I think is a newer competitor here at road racing, he's in his pit stall for 19 seconds so far, and he's actually going to take tires on the GT1. An interesting choice by the newcomer, as you see that Corvette get jacked up in the air for the crew to change those tires. And now Danny Beauchamp, he'll come down pit road to initiate his green flag stop, the one stop of the day. Fitzsimmons was in his pit stall for 13.5 seconds. He's going to come out on track just ahead of the overall race leader, Daniel Beauchamp. May be able to get a little bit of time back, as I believe that is Mcallister who's going to make his way by, still stretching out in the GT3. Now, right now it appears it is only the GT3 drivers that have not boxed yet. Mcallister, Andrew Neri, and Connor Brown opting to stay out. Hansford Taylor, he has retired from the event here at Indianapolis. As Mcallister taking it nice and easy. He's got about a 12.5-second advantage over second place in class Andrew Neri. So in no big risk here to worry. Daniel Beauchamp was in his pit stall for quite a long time, 27.5 seconds for the Honda LMP2. A very, very long pit stop. So I'm not quite sure what the strategy was. I don't believe Beauchamp would have taken tires, as that is pretty outside the norm, but we've seen Beauchamp play some of those mind games in the past and try and switch things up, and we've even seen him do some stuff to make the racing a little bit tighter amongst competitors. So going to be interesting to see and talk to Beauchamp after this race and see what the strategy was there. As now Andrew Neri will be the first GT3 driver to initiate his pit stop in the 654 machine, bringing down pit road with those pit lights on. In the 654 bright pink Barbie painted BMW. Always so interesting hearing those BMWs make their way around. Jumping Johnny Eckert is tucked in behind Beauchamp going into turn one, trying to pick up the draft because he knows Jason Connolly's about 2 seconds back. They've also got, I believe that's going to be Connor Brown and the Ford between them. So Eckert does have a bit of a breathing room here, but he is in that overall podium contention. And we did just get word from Danny Beauchamp's camp and his crew chief that he did take tires on that pit stop, trying to come back out and maybe put down a fastest lap time. So an interesting call from the number 451 crew, opting to take tires. And again, historically they double stint, so maybe with how big the gap was, they want to take the time, put on fresh tires, and now they're going to be a little bit more comfortable in the closing 15 minutes of today's main event. Now this is where you got to keep an eye on Beauchamp. He's got fresh tires. He's very comfortable out on the track, and you may see him come out in hot lap, trying to see if he can improve on his 119.16. Now in qualifying, he got down to a high 118, but that was in a qualifying setup, so it may be slightly out of reach and not quite tangible in the 451 with the full fuel load here today. But now he has the fresh tires, so Beauchamp can be extremely potent. He's still about 17.5 seconds of second place overall, and second in class, Finley Fitzsimmons. We're going to pan the camera back to Fitzsimmons and see where he's at. He'll be diving down into turn one here. As Fitzsimmons will try and get through traffic, I believe that's going to be Brown. It is, who yields the inside line to the LMP2, allowing Fitzsimmons to quickly get on his way. As Fitzsimmons has lost slightly more time to Beauchamp, now 18.5 seconds. It was down to 17.5 after that pit cycle. Mcallister, your class leader in the GT3s, he's going to come down pit road late on his 22nd lap of the race. So he's staying out a little bit longer. Now Connor Brown has also not boxed yet in the GT3s. Fitzsimmons last time by appears to be a 1 minute 20.83 compared to your overall race leader Beauchamp, who clicked off on 1 minute 19.22. But let's see, maybe Fitzsimmons can hold on to it here, just keep his nose clean, and may see a mistake out of Beauchamp later on in the race. Connor Brown makes his way down pit road in the number 45 GT3. So now, barring any incidents, all these drivers should be able to make it to the end on fuel. barring any issues that they may have out on the track here today. Oh, Fitzsimmons with another incident, I think locked up the brakes here. Sends it careening around. Oh, this is where he's got to be very, very careful. You go through the grass on these LMP2s, they can take a couple of corners to clear things out once more. As you see the grass blowing off the back of that LMP2, cleaning the tires off. Thankfully, just a small incident, not a huge problem for Fitzsimmons. But now he'll find himself about 27 seconds back, and Andrew Neri has a crash in the 654 machine. Another self-spin, able to keep the BMW machine nice and shiny, and no aero damage that it appears. But this is the point in the race where drivers start having big problems. You've got 10 minutes left in the main event. And just a simple mistake. Thankfully, we've seen just single car incidents, single car spins, where everybody keeps it off of the track. And let's take a look and see what else is going on with the GT3 drivers. As we check back in with our GT3 drivers, it's still Connor Brown third, Andrew Neri first, Gareth Mcallister out in front. Mcallister in the number 25 Ferrari, having a great race here today. He's about 30 seconds ahead of second in class Andrew Neri, and doing his best to bring home yet another win here at the Legacy Sports Car Series. Out front, it's still Beauchamp, Fitzsimmons, Eckert, Connolly, and Rogers making up our top 5 overall. 2 LMP2 drivers, a Daytona prototype driver of Eckert, and then 2 GT1s rounding out that top 5. Going to be interesting. Connolly still about 3.3 seconds back from Eckert diving into turn 1. So we'll keep an eye and see if that battle may develop here in the future, as now Eckert will also be catching up to Connor Brown in the GT3 number 45 for GT3 to see if he can pick up another spot, as Eckert hanging out the back end of that number 90 machine. And we've got another problem out front. Finley Fitzsimmons goes off track once more. Fitzsimmons just having a rough go here at Indianapolis. We've seen so many drivers have those single car spins. Thankfully, today's been one of the luckiest days, I would say, for drivers avoiding major problems and damage on these machines. So now Fitzsimmons will fall back to about 31, 32 seconds behind your overall race leader, Daniel Beauchamp, in the 451 machine. He's still about 1 minute and 12 seconds ahead of jumping Johnny Eckert in the 90. So not appearing to be in too much of a danger from losing that second overall and second in class position, as the other LMP2 driver of Matthew Hansford Taylor has retired early for the evening. He came in around lap 16. So hopefully Fitzsimmons will be able to salvage today. We're going to pan the camera back to Jason Connolly leading the GT1 class. He's about 3.2 seconds away from being able to battle for an overall position here behind from Johnny Eckert. Connolly in the GT1 has just gotten around Connor Brown's number 45 machine, cutting through traffic nice and easy. Now you'll see this GT1 really stretch its legs once they get back out into the start-finish line. But this infield section, the Daytona prototype driven by Johnny Eckert, has been just so extremely quick, able to flick it back and forth a little bit easier. Zach Rogers has a bit of a bobble on the number 4 machine, but appears to get it going back forward in his Corvette. Good to see again. Good to see Rogers out here for the first time, running inside the top 5 overall, second in class for the GT1s. And I've got to say, week in and week out, these Corvettes are some of my favorite cars to listen to make their way around the road circuits. Just good, old-fashioned American power getting put down to the track here today. Eckert seems to be extending his gap over Jason Connolly. Now it's about 4.2 seconds as they go flying through the infield. So Eckert really finding his stride late in the race. His fastest lap of the race was a 1:23.22, and he's being consistently clicking off 1:23s at this point of the race. Just not having any major problems. And the biggest thing, he's been consistent tonight. That is the most important thing for these drivers, is consistency. That's what's going to win races as well as championships. As back behind you can see Jason Connolly, he's getting overtaken by, I believe that's going to be Fitzsimmons in the number 6 machine going into turn 1, passing the braking boards on the right-hand side of your screen, allowing these drivers to get set up for that turn 1 after such a fast section of the raceway here. Connolly about 4.8 seconds behind Eckert. He's going to lose a little bit of time in the infield and really gain his time on the banking. And that's really the joys of watching these multi-class drivers make their way around the circuit. Things get really shaken up. As we go on board with Jason Connolly, listening to that car scream down the straightaway. Connolly having another great run here, building off of his momentum from last week at Watkins Glen. But he's going to have problems ahead of him as Fitzsimmons has crashed once more. You see a puff of smoke and a lot of dirt getting kicked up from Fitzsimmons' number 6 machine. So that will allow Connolly to get his lap back here. Fitzsimmons is going to have to be careful here, both of wadding up that machinery and putting the Honda LMP2 back in the hauler, but also not wanting to receive any penalties late in the race. That could be absolutely devastating. Eckert doing a great job holding the 3rd overall in the Daytona Prototype, arguably one of, well, historically you'd say it's one of the slower classes out here. Normally the Daytona Prototypes run a little bit behind the GT1s as far as pace, but today Eckert has found a fantastic rhythm and not having any issues, as now he's going to catch up to the 654 machine of Andrew Neri. As let's see, Eckert still extending that lead on, now almost 6 seconds over Jason Connolly. As now Eckert may be able to set an even faster lap time, picking up a draft from the slower class driver. Now Neri right in front of your 3rd place overall driver, Johnny Eckert. He is 2nd in class for the GT3s after having his own bout of inconsistency. As there is a whole lot of dirt coming off of Fitzsimmons' car, and Fitzsimmons bends it into 1. Fitzsimmons pushes too wide, tags the outside wall. And the problems are multiplying for the number 6 machine, who started off strong here today, but things have been compounding rapidly for Fitzsimmons. As I think he's driving around wounded now. I think that Honda LMP2 may have some suspension damage after tagging the outside wall here in Indianapolis. Less than a minute and a half remaining in today's main event. Will Fitzsimmons be able to limp it home here? He's still about 1:15 ahead of Eckert and Connolly, so he should be able to hold on to a second overall if that Honda LMP2 can just hold together for at least 2 more laps here. As Fitzsimmons is going to have to come down pit road late in the race. How is this going to shake things up for the Honda LMP2 drivers? He locks it up on pit road. He may get a penalty as well. Things have rapidly gone wrong for the second place overall driver of Finley Fitzsimmons. He had to come in and maybe repair some damage, and now he may be dealing with a penalty as well. How is this going to shake up the final standings? We've only got 30 seconds left when closing for the race. Daniel Beauchamp looking comfortable to bring home a win here, still setting fast 1:19 lap times. Johnny Eckert may be able to pick up a second overall here in the Daytona prototype. That is unheard of, even for the Legacy Sports Car Series, to put that slower class car up on the podium. Daniel Beauchamp will lead the field around for the final time here at Indianapolis. What an absolutely wild night for these drivers. In typical Legacy Sports Car Series fashion, everything gets shaken up, and Johnny Eckert has passed Fitzsimmons for second, as well as Jason Connolly. We've got a Daytona prototype and a GT1 looking for the podium here today, as the rest of the LMP2 field has had nothing short of problems. Fitzsimmons gets back out on track, but will he be able to catch up to Connolly or Eckert here? As Beauchamp comes around and takes home the checker, winning yet another round of the Legacy Sports Car Series. He will pick up a well-deserved win. Jumping Johnny Eckert is about halfway through his final lap. And Beauchamp will bring it down to a close, celebrating in style. Now we're going to watch to see if Connolly and Eckert can hold on to a podium. Connolly has Fitzsimmons about 9 seconds back from his number 66 machine. Now it is 8 seconds. Connolly trying to hold on to it. He's got a much faster car, about a 1/10 of a lap behind him with Finley Fitzsimmons. Eckert is going to bring it around the start-finish line for the final time to take home a second overall. And just like that, Jason Connolly is going to pick up the final overall podium spot, as well as winning in the GT1 class. What a wild night for everyone. As we're going to pull up the overall results, man, what a night. It's Beauchamp, Eckert, and Connolly, your top 3 overall drivers. LMP2s will be won by Daniel Beauchamp after Fitzsimmons and Hansford Taylor had their slew of problems. Eckert bringing home, most importantly, the second overall after being the lone Daytona prototype driver out on track. You've got the GT3 field of Mcallister, Neri, and Brown bringing home podium positions. Mcallister with a great hard-fought battle. And then finally our GT1 class won by Jason Connolly with Zach Rogers in second. My, oh my, what an overall wild night here today. Danny Beauchamp leading comfortably in the Honda LMP2, but jumping Johnny Eckert and Jason Connolly picking up their podiums here in the slower class cars. Well done to all of our drivers. As always, thank you so much on behalf of Legacy Sports Car Series, as well as Team Goon Squad Broadcasting, for tuning in and cheering on your drivers. We couldn't do it without you guys. Looking forward to seeing everybody same time, same place next week as we get ready to keep chugging along through this series. It's always action-packed, as next week we're going to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, one of my tracks I've had the luxury of driving on in real life, and it's going to be a lot of fun out on track. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next week. Have a great night, everyone.